Well, hello, 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 and thank you so much for that fantastic raid. Welcome to the VML. I'm Skybilz, and with me, I have Misha here with me this evening, and we are thrilled, absolutely thrilled to be able to present you with this week's, I believe this is week 3 already. Again, what is time? I say this every time I'm on here and be like, Skye, that kid, no, like seriously, time is just a figment of our imagination. Ask Teferi, the time raveler, about this. But anyways, here some quick housekeeping things here. So again, we are sponsored by Wizards of the Coast. We are an 11-week long MTGA league which showcases the talents of amazing people of marginalized genders within the Magic community. This is season 12. There are 128 total players. They were divided into 16 divisions. Did 7 weeks of round robin play, and which again, last week was week 2. This is now week 3. So again, what is at stake here? What are we all here playing for? First of all, we're here just to have a good time together. But there is more to it than that, right? Because we love playing in tournaments. We love prizes. So we're playing for, in addition to cash prizing, the top 16 get qualifier weekend badges, and the top 8 get RC invites, and they get to compete in our capstone event, the VML Championships, where the top players from seasons 11, 12, and 13 duke it out, and the top 2 players receive invitations to the following Magic the Gathering Pro Tour. And again, we have had some fantastic folks here from the VML just completely kick butt within the Pro Tour. Me and Misha were talking about that before. So again, just big shout outs to everybody here. Shout outs to folks supporting the VML, and of course, Sanctum of All. We very much love y'all too. So thank you so much again for just being awesome here. So with that being said, Misha, how are you doing? How's Magic going for you?
I'm doing great. Magic's been great. Been loving some OTJ Limited. Been playing a lot of that. Had some fun with Theros drafts. Just having a good time. Been playing a lot more. Probably shouldn't be playing as much. I've got other things I need to do, but Magic's hard not to play. So
Oh my goodness, that's right. Theros, well, second Theros, I believe, has been out, but that still feels like a long time ago, right? Theros Beyond Death, like, oh my goodness. When I think about that, I'm like, it feels like it just happened yesterday, but yeah, that was actually quite a long time ago. Some folks would call that the before times, just wow. But you want to know what we do have going on right now. So standard, we were talking about standard. Standard is enormous right now. We just added Outlaws at Thunder Junction. So again, standard feeling overwhelming. We're still going to get a little bit more until finally, and I say finally as a lover of rotations, that's going to be coming up this fall. But again, we're still going to be keeping some favorites. I'm pointing here to my Phyrexian symbol because, I still love my Elishnorn and I still love my Shieldred. So, yes, I know some of you out there are going to be groaning, boo, Shieldred. But I'm like, yay, absolutely big fan.
oh
Oh, and we
boy,
have Fibblethip. Oh, my goodness, I love that. Bibblethip lost on the range. Big fan of that card as well. Much love
I keep my
for
boy on
Fibblethip.
me.
So now you may think, well, okay, well, what's been dominating lately? The answer this week in week 3 is yes. So let's take a look at the Metagame Breakdown here. And Misha, I want to pick your mind about so much of what's going on here. We have Esper midrange, Teamer Analyst, Golgari midrange, 4-color legends, Boros Convoke, that's tiny, 9. And then we have a bunch of 14 fringe decks here. Teamer Analyst, though, just right up there with Esper midrange. What is going on in standard, Misha?
Yeah, actually, I believe last week Team Analyst took our top spot, and Esper Midrange was, I think, either second or third. So yeah, it's been one of the more popular ones. Esper Midrange also, consistently showing up, showing out. But yeah, Teamer Analyst, it's a really fun deck. It is not exactly a combo deck, but once it gets going, once you start building up your mana, those World Souls Rages just deal, enough to just shoot somebody down in one turn. And there's a lot of recursion. Its biggest fight, like the thing it has to fight against most, is a lot of graveyard hate. That's where Esper midrange usually sideboards in, like a Rest in Peace. There's some cards in Golgari midrange that help combat some of that graveyard recursion. Something that I thought was really interesting is that we had a lot of domain ramp decks in some of the previous weeks, but it's actually fallen off quite a bit in this go around. I was really surprised to see Golgari mid range pick up so many decks this week. And then, of course, 4-color legends. Those are your Gurk decks. That Gurk combo, Sanctum of All really put that one on the map, and it's been showing up and doing work. And then Boros Convoke, you get a Gleeful Demolition on 2 and just start, putting a bunch of threats out on the board, haste them, pump them up and haste them. That's a turn 3, turn 4 kill pretty easy. So these are some of the top contenders, typically just in standard at the moment. Definitely in the VML. We do tend to see some fluctuations, a lot of, a little bit of figuring out what your opponents are playing and metagaming around them. Some of that is, maybe why we see some of these fluctuations. If a certain player's been playing a certain thing, you kind of metagame, make sure your deck might have the edge over theirs. So it's been fun, but yeah, so this is pretty consistent with what we've seen. It's pretty consistent with what I've been seeing just on arena, like ladder in general. But it makes for a lot of really fun matchups because if you metagamed wrong, you may be in a less advantageous position, or it could be a true 50-50. You never know.
Absolutely. And I think one of the reasons why folks have, well, we'll call it flocked, it's by one deck over to Esper midrange this week is it is one of those decks that's very malleable, right? You have so many different things that you can sideboard in, being exposed to black, blue, and white mana respectively here. So again, there's lots going on. Of course, for Fiend, which has been argued to be one of the best cards, if not the best card in the format. But tonight we have quite the variety tonight. So let us roll in to our first match. And my goodness, here we have Skye, and they are on Simic Toxic. So again, one of those fringe decks here. And just there's a lot going on right now. We have the Storm Chaser Drake, of course, one of the backbones to that deck. Venerated Rot Priest, March of Swirling Mist. And again, that Rot Priest stacks very quickly within this format. What do you think is the card that people most have to watch when dealing with Simic Toxic, Misha?
Oh, it's absolutely the venerated rot priest. That is really the catalyst for this deck. It's how, this deck is trying just to count to 10, and that rot priest starts racking up poison counters over and over anytime there you target it or just really anything. There's the ivies as well that double up the March of Swirling Mist. The fact that if you have 2 or 3 creatures on board and one of them is the rot priest, that you can just exile a blue card from your hand, target all of them. Phase them out and get counters. It's really like the pivotal part of this deck is making sure you get a Rot Priest on that board and it stays on that board. And what's really nice about it is it is not a legendary creature. So what's better than first Rot Priest, second, third, and fourth Rot Priest?
Just like second breakfast for the hobbits, right? And again,
Absolutely.
kind of relevant because of Lord of the Rings, right? But yeah, absolutely. So we talk about the ideal hand here, and Skye is absolutely right here. Rapri, Storm Chaser Drake, Protection Spell, 2 or 3 lands. Yeah, these are going to be the kind of hands that Skye is going to be looking for here. Her opponent, now, Skye's going to be counting to 10, and Sensitive Joy is going to be counting to 20. So 1 to 10, 1 to 20. This is Sensitive Joy on the Mono Red Aggro. And Mono Red Aggro did receive some weapons from Outlaws at Thunder Junction. Would you like to talk about that, Misha?
Yeah, I think it's the biggest weapon is the Slick Shot Show Off. That has it's not quite prowess, it's the power heavy prowess. You don't get the toughness buff, but you get double the power buff. And it has haste, flying, like so it has evasion, it goes fast. You also have the ability to plot it if you want to make sure that say you think your opponent has a damage spell that does 2 damage, you plot it, and if you have a monstrous rage in hand, which is also in this deck, you can pump it up, make it a 3 butt, and it can get past like say those playing like play with fires and things like that. So it's a really great deck. The show off really, pumped it up to the next level. It's not quite a monastery swift sphere, but it's the next best thing.
Yeah, so we joke about things before in Magic. We're like, oh yeah, this is a great value. This no, no, no. This is like whatever the reverse of a great value for prowess is. Like you knock it a step up. I don't know what that would be, Target or something like that, Up and Up brand or something. There it is, right there in the Slick Shot Show Off. And I've yet to see this card in action because again, we see so many things on the ladder in arena, right? Well, I am looking forward to seeing this. Good luck, have fun to both players here. Here we go. One count to 10, one count to 20. 20. Who will prevail? And let's
Both
see.
both players trying to go fast though. That is key.
Whew. And again, so mono red can go on one land, but this is a one lander here. And it looks like, based on the description here, that this is everything Simic Toxic would want here. What do you think of these opening hands, Misha?
For the Simic Toxic deck, absolutely. That is a great start. I would, snap keep it. Joy, on the other hand, and I know this is terrible. I am a believer in keeping those one land hands. I have been punished many a times, but I probably, with two play with fires in hand, I might have kept that first hand.
I mean, who hasn't, right? Though, like, I've kept a one lander. I totally get it. So here we go. We have a Kamado Physis Kakasan to start here. And it looks like, are we going to see the second Kamado? No, 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 no. We're just going to see a lightning strike to the helm here, down to 16. And that is a Ivy off the top. But again, going with the bread and butter that is Rot Priest here. And back over to Mono Red. Kamado Physis Kakasan emerges into a creature on the field. And now looks like there's going to be a second one here. And let's see what happens here come combat. Expecting to be down the middle here. And oh, wait, wait, wait. Oh, Monstrous Rage. All right.
Yeah, the
And yeah, go ahead.
Monstrous Rage is pretty great, not when your creature is about to phase out, though. So then you don't get any real value, and you're also going to have the Rot Priest phase out to get, for Toxic, some of the key points are getting that very first, poison counter, because then you can proliferate off of it. Getting that 3rd poison counter, so you have Corruption, and then obviously when you get to 10, because that's when your opponent's just dead.
Yep, that is 2 poison damage down the middle for 1, because why not? We can count to 20 as well too with Simic Toxic. That is a Storm Tracer Drake off the top. However, we're seeing an odd scenario here. The Simic deck currently has less lands on the field than the Mono Red right now. This certainly isn't what we were expecting here early in game 1 from either of these 2 decks.
Yeah, this it's really unfortunate that Joy is just kind of flooding. That's never what, you want to have happen as the mono red player, but it happens. The Simic deck definitely could use at least like one or two more mana, but is making it work. A lot of these Simic spells are one or two mana, so you don't necessarily need anymore to make it do what it is, but what it needs to do, but you do have to be kinda careful careful because there are some things Joy could just easily top deck and turn this in her favor.
Yes, certainly. Looks like we're going to get a slip out the back here from Skye. And they are choosing the Storm Chaser Drake, which activates the priest. And again, just so much value here coming from the Simic deck. And again, while the Foundry's there in the back row here, this looks like a very, despite the mana situation, a very commanding start here for Skye.
Oh, absolutely. 2 Rat Priests on board. This is just racking up the poison counters so quickly, the Drake's drawing cards. Um, I would not be surprised if the game ends this turn. That royal treatment can target the Drake, and I can't remember what the adventure ability of Elusive Ardor does, but depending off what the Storm Chaser Drake draw is, it could just be over and out right here.
Yeah, on that note too, again, a lot of these magic cards look like complete novels. We've had to talk about that before. I mean, especially with the adventure cards and whatnot. That is an enormous Drake. Oh my goodness. And now it has Ward as well. And that is Nahiri's Warcrafting. But is it too late here?
That will be the final 2 triggers.
Yep. And that is going to be game number 1. It is quicker to count to 10 than 20. And we saw that in game number 1. However, perhaps the mana might go a little more in favor of mono red going into game 2. So, sideboard here, there's a lot of interesting possibilities here. Which one of these decks has the edge when it comes to sideboarding?
I would probably say, just bringing in those Tameo safekeepings that gain a little bit of life. 1 or 2 extra life could easily be the game changer against a mono red deck. So, and plus, those are just 1 mana spells that trigger the Drake and the Rat Priest. So I thought that was an easy, snap include. Over on Joy's side, I think, yeah, I would be bringing in these shocks because that will take out your rot priest if it's able to, get in and not avoid, like, not have protection. Um, I would probably take out some of the more expensive stuff because the Simic deck is looking to also go pretty quickly. So the forges I might take out. Um, the Yeah, I think I would definitely take out the forges just because it's not fast enough, and I would bring in just any creature removal. It You don't want to technically use the creature removal against the rot priest because it will get a counter, but if you do it early before they start to pop off, it can be worth it.
All right, so here we go. Going into game number two. Skye is up 1 game to none, and here we go. 4 mountains in Joy's hand. She will have to keep here, and Skye, she also takes the hand. So again, no excessive mulligans here. You do love to see that. And let's see what happens here. We have a opts to play the tapped land. Gonna keep that blue open for turn two. Rot Priest and Ivy sitting in the hand here. 2 mana open, but that is a Drake off the top. But looks like the Rot Priest will still happen first. So, Misha, how clutch of a draw was that Drake here early in game two?
I think that's pretty good. Right now, Joy has the option to try to take out that rot priest. We do have the March of Swirling Mist. It can exile either the either the Drake or the Ivy, since they are blue cards, and give the Rat Priest protection. That is what I would most likely do here. It also gives Joy that very first poison trigger.
Yes, that's looking like what's going to happen here. We're just waiting to see which card is going to be pitched here. And this is
Yep.
quite the decision here. Looking like the Ivy generates maybe a little less value in the current hand state versus the Drake here. So March
Yeah.
gets this, Lightning Strike fizzles, and we are into turn three here. So, what is going to need to happen for Mono Red to kind of get back into this game here? It looks like there's just so much value in Sky's hand right now.
So what Joy really needs here is creatures. Like she has the some of the removal, but she really needs to get some creatures and push that damage if this game is gonna go in her favor. You can't really win if you're not pushing that damage as a mono red deck. It's
Yeah, and
unfortunate.
Kumano faces Kakazan, which is the only board presence right now for Mono Red. Kind of just sitting there chilling at 2. And again, this will tell the story if, again, it goes into Sky's turn and there's no creature being played here, that there is mostly removal here. So Rot Priest looking like down the middle here, 4 poison, 18 life. And let's see. Nope. We saw the land, we saw the pass. Very classic Simic move here. And we'll see how much damage Joy can put onto the board here.
Yeah, so Joy did get the creature that she needed, but we do have an Otawara that I believe actually, no, you cannot bounce it right now. Um, so Joy will be able to get a little bit of damage pushed, but there is an Otawara that can be, um, cast well,
Channeled, yeah.
yeah, channeled, there's the word. I
Yeah.
cannot think of it. It could be channeled next turn to bounce it back to hand just to get a little, take that demonic ruckus off the slick shot and slow it down a bit.
Oh my. So that was a March of Burgeoning Life for a replacement Rod Priest. You just cannot get rid of those Rod Priests, causing quite the ruckus here for Joy. And even though it looks like Joy's got a good board state here, just again, the hand looking a little sparse as those semicolors just continue to generate value.
Absolutely. The Rat Priest will be coming down for a seventh. Timely interference can trigger it up to eight. And I'm trying to see if this is going to be enough to get all the way to 10. That the safekeeping can go up to nine. And yeah, it
It might
looks
just be.
yeah, the otter can give a counter and the safekeeping can uh, trigger, and that will be 10 as it plays out.
Wow. I mean, usually I associate, super aggro decks with red, but my goodness, here comes Simic with the aggro again. The ability to count to 10 just playing a huge factor there. And what a game! What an absolute game. It is unfortunate that the mono red deck just could not draw out just too many lands there. That is something that you definitely have to dodge. And even in game two, you throw back 4 lands, you could come back with a one lander and then suddenly you're off mulliganing to 5. Very difficult decisions to be made there. But both players, again, just showing, giving it their all. And that's what the VML is all about here. But now, if we see an uptick in Simic Toxic next week, we're gonna have to blame this matchup, Misha.
I have always been a toxic believer. I'm a little bit more on that Bant toxic. I like some of the white cards you can play, but Simic toxic, I'm just toxic.
But again, don't underestimate either of those decks. It is worth saying both of those decks are very quick. That, in addition to Boros Convoke, those are like your aggro decks for this format, right? So again, keep an eye out for all of them. You have to be sure you're prepared for those because otherwise they will just run you over. And I've seen that especially with Convoke. Speaking of decks, let's go into our second matchup. All right, we have. Oh, I love that picture, by the way. Absolutely great. We have Aspi here on Boros Convoke. So again, perfect segue. I had to look over at my sheet like, oh my gosh, that was great. I'm not going to say I planned it though. Boros Convoke here coming up. We have the Knight Errant of Eos, of course, very popular card. Again, that is like the heart of the deck. We also have Inmodane's Recruiter, the ability to animate, to get those creatures moving, to add power to the creatures. And of course, Gleeful Demolition. Everyone loves just getting a bunch of goblins out for cheap. Misha, what do you like about Convoke the most in the current format?
Get big, go fast.
Yeah, no,
That's
absolutely.
that speaks to me sometimes. Who doesn't love just getting a bunch of one-ones and then playing an Immodane's Recruiter and pumping them up and sending it all at face? It always feels good.
Yeah, this deck is very satisfying to play. And if you are used to playing, the stereotype, the very standard mono white humans, we've seen that deck across all different kinds of formats. This is the deck for you here if you're into that kind of thing. And the most common thing used to describe this deck is Pioneer and Standard. I always hear that whenever I go to register this list. Her opponent, what is going to be taking on the Convoke? It is no other than Sarah England, and she is on Dimir midrange. Again, this is kind of like the best way I would describe this is like Esper midrange's cousin because it feels very similar, right? It's got a very similar feel to it. You miss out on some of the wonderful white cards in the format. However, there's still bats here. If there's black, there's bats probably in this format. Absolutely. Big love for that Gix Preacher also to look for. Misha, what do you think about this deck's potential overall? And how would you say it's a little different from Espermid?
Um, I really love the Dimir mid-range deck. If it has a bat in it, I'm usually a fan. I like me some deep cavern bats. This one, it's a little bit different because you're obviously not playing Rafine. That is the biggest difference. You're not getting that white pip. You're not putting Rafine in, so you're not conniving. But that's kind of where Gix takes that spot in this deck. Gix, if you're getting in with these Spyglass Sirens or your bats or the Fairy Masterminds, you're going to be drawing from the Gix to kind of replace the connive that Rafine would typically be doing. And your mana is going to be a little bit better because you're not 3 colors. So that's kind of the big difference here. There's some of the other cards, like the Virtue of Loyalty, that is also really popular in the Esper decks, and the Get Lost that you're missing out on. But black has plenty of removal to replace the Get Lost, and the Virtue is a finisher, but cards like Sholdred, and the Preacher to be able to, like, hold other, things back, and the, um yeah, I think it's mostly, the Sholdred. The Sholdred's really the finisher in this deck.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And again, if you think Shieldred's going to rotate, think again. We still got a full another year of Shieldred the Apocalypse. Sorry, I don't get to make the rules, but I do love my fellow Phyrexians. So, yeah, a lot of great stuff coming up in this match. I can't wait. Let's get going. All right. So, looks like we are just underway. We're going to see who gets to go first here. Most likely Aspi. And here we go.
Yep.
All right, there we go. Wow. So this is a card that doesn't get talked about a lot here. So we do have the Mosswood Dread Knight.
Yes,
Um,
I love the Mosswood Dread Knight. Pay a life, draw a card, then you get a 3/2 a trample, and then if the 3/2 trample dies, you can pay a life and draw a card, and then get it back. It's a wonderful card. It's personally my favorite card in this entire deck. Um, it's great.
so yes, duress in the opener. You do not see this every day. All right, go into the next turn. We have Kumano versus Kakasan.
You discard first Kamano, but then you have second Kumano.
Oh yeah. Yeehaw, I love that. I love to see the flavor from both players here. We have the Shoff. Now that is what you want to see off a Komodo faces Kakas on there. But cut down, had other plans. Still a great attempt there to be made. And that is a Glissa in Aspi's hand. But nope, going for the duress. You're saying, no, I want maximum value here. This is against mono red, going to probably make the board presence or could use the Terra Sunder, but nope, pass is most likely going to do the Terra Sunder here. So again, this is a big matchup about board presence here. How is, without the lightning strike, how is this going to be handled? This Glissa that is sitting here in Aspi's hand.
Um, it probably will not be handled very easily, to be honest.
All right, so we have Tear Asunder, Monastery Swift Sphere, and now we are going to get to see Glissa in action here. And this is a card, if not responded to immediately, it just takes over to the game. All right, that is an extra land here. It's going to be interesting to see if Takanuma gets used. Swift Sphere to block.
Takanuma coming out as a land, gonna draw off the Dread Knight, and then I would assume that that will just come out as another attacker.
All right, so that is quite the board presence right now for Golgari. We have Bloodthirsty Adversary out. Unfortunately, not enough mana to pay here. We'll go down the middle because you really can't do much to block the Glissa right now. They trade. And now we get to see the power of the Dread Knight here because, again, that kind of hangs out in the exile zone here. Let's see what happens off the Glissa first. Lots of value here.
All right, Caustic Bronco for the draw.
This is a card from Outlaws of Thunder Junction that I haven't had a chance to see in action yet, but I do hear it does quite well in this Golgari midrange deck.
Yeah, a lot of the Golgari midrange decks, they've been playing the what's it called, Insatiable Avarice, where you can. I guess it's more of actually an Orzhov with the Snorse, but you can play that. Put a what is it? What's one of the I think it's the Harvester of Misery. It's like the 15 cost. You can put it on the top of your library, saddle the Snorse, attack, and just ping your opponent for 15 to the dome.
Oh, Cavern of Souls is here too. And wow, I had never imagined Golgari mid-range to be this potent against mono red, but given what's in the deck, like I totally see it. There's just so much here to go off of. And much like Esper mid, this really does have a lot of answers to many different decks. You were talking about graveyard shenanigans before, Misha.
Yeah, this one, the Graveyard Trespasser, the Tranquil Frillback, those are great graveyard hate cards. There's also the life gain. So you couple that together, you're gaining life, you're getting rid of some graveyards. I know some of the mono red lists play like Phoenix Chicks, those are great to get out of the yard. And if you're getting life against anything um uh, aggressive, you're already putting your aggressive aggro opponent a step back from what they want to do.
Yeah, again, I was talking about it before in the precast. I learned so much about what this format is capable of right now. And it's just, how does one go preparing for this? Like, there's just so many decks, there's so many different answers. And it's one of the hardest parts of the VML is selecting a deck every week. And this is reflective of that. All right.
It's a great starting hand for Aspi.
Yes. Yes. Two Dread Knights. Very good. Also, the cut down, too, for Mono Red isn't too shabby either.
Think I would be pitching maybe the Llanowar Wastes here. It is a little bit slow, but it does ping you. Cottage also comes in tapped and is a little bit slow, so I could see that as a reasonable throwback as well.
All right, so we get the draw here, and look at this. Look at this curve out right here. This is something that you want to see like all the time. Cut down, Dread Knight, and or the draw spell, and then we have our wonderful dinosaur friend that just got drawn. You couldn't really ask for a better opener here with even a mulligan.
Yeah, truly. This is even going down one card on the play, still really strong.
All right, adversary here, but not gonna do much here with that cut down in play. So down to 18 still for Aspi though from the spell. And looks like we're going to go with the creature here. Makes sense. Mono red and all board presence is important. Land for mono red. There's a lot of thought process going on here. Oh, that is a forge though. The forge against the mid range now. That is going to do something here.
I really love the Urbrass Forge. It is a constant, aggressive attacker every turn that just keeps growing and growing. The trample is great. I think that's a really nice pickup because Mono Red getting into like the later game struggles if its board gets wiped or they're just not able to push through. But having something that grows with haste every turn, that's a way that you can finish in some of these matchups that may not be over in the first few turns like you're hoping.
Oh my goodness. Now that is a card that very much and get this punishes you for not playing regular lands. I'm sorry, not sorry here. But yeah, that is going to be massive likely life leak every turn here unless there is something that can be done by the Golgari deck to make something. Now Trespasser does gain a life, but that Furnace Punisher is going to catch up rather quickly. This is a pretty tough clock here for Golgari in game 2.
Mhm. Can't really attack with that Furnish Punisher. You kinda need it on defense right now, which you never really want to be on defense in mono red.
Mhm. Yeah, agreed. So down the middle here for 4 total, very still, very aggressive play down to 9. And there goes Furnish Punisher again. Might as well be a 7. And there's some choices here. Shieldred's looking pretty good here.
Yeah,
It's just oh, good.
unfortunately, that blooming marsh is gonna come in tapped, so can't quite get shouldered out just yet. You can put the tranquil frill back down, but you're not gonna get any of the added value that you want off the frill back since it costs an extra green to be able to do those abilities. I think you just put the other graveyard trespasser down. Try to gain a little bit of life if you can, and you know just stay alive. But leaving the harvester of misery up, and if Sarah does have the something to pump the show off, that will take care of the show off in the air to hopefully keep Aspie alive for one more turn.
This is a massive board swing here for mono red. Looking like four to the face. Like actually looking like more because otherwise that one land would have been attacking as well. So now we're thinking about what's in hand.
Nothing nothing being played just yet. We do know that the harvester can give that -2, -2, but it's kind of like one of those weird, like, are you gonna pass priority? Are we
Oh
gonna
yeah.
just go through the damage?
Oh, there is the
Oh,
lightning strike to the face, and
the
that is going to be
post
it.
yeah, the post-combat lightning strike for lethal.
So the good news is, if you're Golgari, you can still gain a lot of life against mono red. The thing is, you kind of need the right hand to go for it. I mean, Path of Peril, while it's looking good, it can only do so much, right? Because you need to be able to prevent that clock from suddenly ticking down like that. And that Forge was a pretty good way to reduce the time needed to take away the rest of Golgari's life.
Yeah, the forage is a really, really great, mid to late game strategy for the mono red deck. And when you're playing against a mid range deck, especially when it gets, caught a little bit on their lands, it's just a constant pusher. And it really came through in that last matchup. All right. We have a cut down and a duress in hand and a shoot the sheriff. Aspi is all in on disrupting and removing their opponent's board. Gonna take that Kumano faces Kakazan.
Yeah, duress is very much a bold one here because again, you want to be able to destroy Red's targets. But speaking of which, here is the second single black spell cut down to kind of go with the duress here. So both are useful in this matchup. Going to have a little bit of board presence early here, and that is a Lily of the Veil off the top. Gonna make that creature be sacrificed here, and suddenly Mono Red is down to 2 cards in hand. Whew.
Yeah, that Slickshot show off, I believe, is a mercenary, or at least something that the shoot the sheriff cannot target, if I'm remembering properly.
Yeah, so slick shot show off. You try saying that 3 times fast.
No, no, thank you. I'm good.
All right, this is Mono Red's worst nightmare, Shieldred the Apocalypse. Let's see what happens next.
That Godric can be quite the card if you have a couple of permanents coming out.
Yes, Liliana the Veil getting maximum value here, getting rid of Godric, Shieldred down the middle for 4, and going to be a little bit more here come the upkeep.
Yeah, Shieldred being on board is never the position you want to be in as the mono red player. Shoot the sheriff will take care of Godric. Godric is not one of the types that shoot the sheriff cannot target. So sorry, Godric, you've been shot.
Yeah, that is a animated restless cottage as well too. You know, everything looks fine and dandy until you see one of those lands animate, and that is something you should always keep an eye out here. 2 life now for the mono red. Can Shieldred be stopped here? That is the good game.
No, no shoulder can't.
No.
Oh.
Oh! Well, I mean, it's cool to see what's on the top, right? Like, I get that. I get that.
Right.
Shieldred into mono red. That is one of the reasons why I always find it difficult to register mono red or anything that's aggressive. I'm just always afraid Shieldred's going to hit the field and take over the game.
Yeah, there's been very, very few times that I've been able to win a game with mono red against Shieldred. Not saying it's impossible, but it is a very upward hill to climb.
And you know, you could even say, well, Golgari seemed to dominate there. Why not register that? Well, have you seen Azorius lately? Azorius is just an absolute nightmare. And if you end up with the wrong matchup into that, it's just something you do not want to see.
True, very true. All right. Well,
But yes, we'd like to apologize here. There has been a little bit of technical difficulties. We are working on that, but we still wanted to showcase some magic, right? Like maybe there's some folks here that weren't here from the week before, and it's always good to be able to show off some games of magic, even during the tech difficulties. Apologies to the players there. We started referring to the decks just in case things were mislabeled. But again, it still was awesome to see that match from last week. And it's always good to see where the state of the format is right now. So I'm thinking about those 2 decks we saw. And we what did we have? We had some Golgari in the deck makeup for this week. So again, if that was something that was showed last week, we're thinking about things having an impact there.
Yeah. Yep. So sorry to the players that were. I know Aspi was supposed to be one of the players this week. Sorry to Sarah. We had a mislabeled file, so again, we apologize, but that's not going to stop us. We're going to move on to the next one and see what we have next for you.
All right, what do we have here? Ooh, Dimir midrange. So we've been talking about bats. There's when in doubt, if you see black on the deck list, just assume there's going to be bats. Bats are so good in this format. I mean, again, you have just so much sheer value between flying, lifelink, and confiscating a card from the hand. But besides the bat, what else should folks watch out for with Dimir mid?
This deck is a little bit different from the one that we saw on the previous slide we were supposed to see. There is a hostile investigator. I found this as a very interesting addition. It has, discard payoffs and investigate triggers for discard payoffs. So I was really excited to see that here. Something new, something different. And then obviously your go for the throats are going to be great for your removal on your opponent's board.
I want to note here because the folks in chat cannot see this, but the name of this deck is Too Busy to Brew, so here's my Batman villain arc. I love it. I love the names of these decks. It's one of my favorite parts of the VML. Well put, Quill. So, their opponent, we have a Clara, and she is on Azorius Flash. So again, we were talking about Azorius being a thing. This is one that I have not seen quite yet. Everything kind of makes sense with the pieces and parts of Azorius here, but I'll tell you something. I haven't seen this one quite yet. Misha, what do you have to add about Azorius Flash as someone who may have not quite seen this deck in the format?
Oh, this is a fun one. I I really like this one. It kind of centers around Era and Giada, but you also have your Stoic Sphinx that once you flash it in, that thing has hexproof unless you've target or you've cast another spell during that turn. So you flashed in on your opponent's instep, and they're gonna have a difficult time interacting. And since it has flying, you just better your opponents better hope they have flyers too, or that you've cast a spell that turn. There's also the Wranglers of the Damned. There's a couple of those in there. Those, you flash those in, don't do anything on your turn. This whole deck is based around, doing stuff on your opponent's turn. And then you just get, a ton of 2/2 flyers by, not casting anything on your turn. You have your Emperors, you have your counter spells, no more lies, 3 steps ahead. I also love the addition of High Noon in this deck. It is Azorius Flash, but there are a few, dual lands with red because there is the, pay red and I think it's, 5 mana total, and you can just do 5 damage to any target. That's a finisher. I have definitely played a few limited matches where I played a High Noon and just, pinged someone for 5 to the face to end the game. So, I love that addition. It makes me happy, and this is just a fun fast-paced. It's not in terms of gameplay, it's not fast-paced, but it's fast and when you're flashing things out on your opponent's instep.
We were talking about analyst earlier. High noon would be really good against that. So for anything that just chains spells, wow. And I'm glad that you mentioned that about the red source because again, I haven't seen a lot of these cards quite yet. Wrangler of the Damned, also very intriguing to me. Well, let's see it in action here. I'm very fascinated by this deck. So what do we have? Oh, Invasion of Amaket here. Oh, how could have I missed that? That is a fantastic card. Again, just standard has such a big card base. So just again, something to look out for here. Looks like we have the Spyglass Siren here on turn one, being productive, making the map token.
Mhm, and, what's that I see? Is that potentially a turn 2 bat?
Oh yeah, always. If you see the open mana there it is. There's the bat. Let's have a look at Clara's hand.
Oh.
Oh,
Well,
Okay.
that is great information for Quill to have that, there are what is that? 3, 6, 9 steps ahead if we're counting?
It's more than one step ahead, I'll tell you that much. Land down for Claire going into turn 3. We have the tap animate land here. Looking like we're going to have another Siren here. And again, that is a Tidebinder also in Quill's hand here. So lots to be done. Map token going to be used for production here, but using it on the Siren here to draw a card. That is Otawara off the top going into Clara's turn. So, how does Clara deal with this current board state? Because things are getting very clogged quite early for Dimir midrange.
Fortunately, we do know that Clara has the Aven Interrupter, has the 2 white to cast it. Once those map tokens, if they start hitting, non-lands and pumping up some of these creatures, it's going to be a little bit harder. But that can at least put Quill off of being able to cast something for a turn. There's also the counter spells because right now Quill just has 3 little 1/1s, which over time will do some damage, but Clara has some time to set up for some other potential threats. Say, one more land and a Sphinx flashes out. Um, and a lot of Clara's payoffs are flyers. So the normal evasion that these sirens and bats would have, um, you're not going to be getting. It's not going to be getting past Clara since most of Clara's deck flies.
Yeah, and that is another reef onto the board. And again, those get big quickly. 3 steps ahead. We had the three steps ahead. Now only 2 there. To draw 2, then discard 2. This hand is getting massive here for Claire. And again, that is a lot of lands in Quill's hand right now. So again, not quite as sure about the advantage, but oh, that is a couple land drops missed though for Claire. So I suppose it kind of balances out here, but again, as Misha was saying, that is still the interrupter there in Clara's hand. Mana's still open for it.
Yeah. I would assume that that interrupter is going to come out and basically the way the interrupter works if you have never played against it is it's not a counter spell, but it is a you're basically, putting them off of whatever they're casting one more turn. A normalize comes out instead, which is just a straight up counter spell. But the interrupter is going to plot whatever spell your opponent's casting, and then they have to pay 2 to be able to cast it as a plotted card.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's a counter spell. Speaking of a counter spell, no, that is a traditional counter spell. Finally, a land down here for Clara the Fourth, but that one is coming down tapped. Interrupter mana still open here, and Clara's doing a fantastic job of warding off Quill here in game number 1. But there's going to be a second bat, allegedly. Allegedly, let's see what happens here. Anything's possible with blue mana.
I think this is where I would be doing the interrupter. Be like, you can have your bat next turn, but I'm going to put my 2/2 flyer out and make it a little bit harder for you to attack through. Granted, we know Quill has to go for the throat, going to be able to attack with those 3/1/1s. Um, but I'm very curious to find out what some of those other cards, aside from the 3 steps ahead, Clara has.
Now, I love the awareness here from Quill. They could have attacked with the bat, but Wandering Emperor could come into play and get the card back.
Mhm.
So, again, that is just great awareness of what is possible here. And again, these are open deck lists here in the VML, but to have that kind of restraint is an excellent play.
Yeah, and also, I love that Clara's deck is a flash deck. Oh, second interrupter.
Okay. So, that's one way to delay a bat. However, that is going to be a tide binder down. One of the favorites here in this format.
This is such a funny interaction to me that
Wow.
you play your interrupter to interrupt the bat, you play the tidebinder to interrupt the interrupter,
And you play the interrupter to interrupt the interrupter. And looks like Odawara can't be played this turn. Nothing can be really swung here. That I can't believe. I actually no, it does lose flying. I stand
Oh, man.
corrected in the air for 3. So yeah, I mean that really did get a good grasp on the game here as a result. Again, that loss of flying was huge for Quill.
Yeah. We do know, now that we've had a peek at Clara's hand, there is an Aaron and Giada over on the other side. There's also a high noon head. Clara does also have the activation for the anchorage. So if well, had the activation for the anchorage, let me excuse myself. The Field of Ruin is targeted, and I believe it's gonna go basic.
I believe Quill has something against birds, not necessarily bats, just birds.
That's supremacy here.
Well, there was a villain arc being specified in the comments. All right, so we're going to see what's going to happen with this floating man. Again, there's a lot of steps ahead here in Claire's hand. I would just say three, but there's more than that involved. So now we're about to see some sharks of sorts.
Mhm. What
That is kind of bulky, actually.
That's a big shark. 4 damage in the air plus a shark on the ground. The Era Ingiata can flash out though to block one of these.
That's another wandering emperor into the yard here. So there's one that was confiscated by the bat that did not swing. That's an important detail. And now there's also one in the yard now. So that's two out of the way. So this would be where you go to the deck list saying, okay, how many are there left? And it looks like from what I'm seeing in the deck list, that was the only two in their deck. But ooh, now we have a Sphinx flashed onto the field. That is a 5/3 flyer. That's going to be a pretty big difference maker here in terms of being able to preserve damage being done.
Mhm. And going to get a card back to hand off of the bat. That Sphinx, the Odawara cannot currently interact with it since
Mm-mm.
it has hexproof until Clara casts a spell um, on um, on whatever turn. So it's going to be a little bit difficult for Quill to push through that last 6 points of damage. But as soon as Clara tries to flash something out, that Sphinx can be bounced back to hand. But when you're playing against a flash deck, it can be a little challenging.
Certainly. So that is the Aaron and Giada that's out. And now this is a very difficult situation for Claire to navigate here. High noon. But again, we've talked about this before. Odawara is a channel. It is not a spell. So that would not count against the high noon. That is a Mirex off the top lands that do things here. This Dimir mid-range deck is full of it. And let's see what's going to happen here. Looks like we're going to get more sharks. No, it's not Shark Tycoon. I'm sorry, I missed it too. But yes, Reef now on the field and Quill doing some quick math. She's seeing that there is another reef, but do you use the Odawara? There's a lot of decisions to be made here.
Yeah, because if Quill were to bounce the Aaron and Giada back to hand, attack all, I don't think Clara can really afford to take 4 off the reef, would need to block with the Sphinx. Still going to block with the Sphinx because, still can't really afford to take that too. Um, but Quill would have been able to push through at least a little bit of damage with the Sirens and Bat.
All right, so high noon on board still, but again, this is just there's not a lot here for Claire to do. The big difference maker right now, besides maybe a little bit of hand size, is just the enormous board with the lands to do. So again, there's only so much Clara can do right now on 5 lands. And here we have Quill, and while Quill is flooded, it's flooded with a purpose, right?
Hmm. That
Oh,
Wrangler flashing out. I'm
yeah.
interested to see if Quill bounces the Wrangler back to hand before the instep, and it can create a 2/2.
Aaron and Giada down the board for 2. Yep, connects. Okay, it looks like nope, no token yet for the Wrangler. Now the Wrangler could be flashed back in, but that would be it for the amount of mana.
Mhm. And with another Restless Reef on the board, that's it's gonna be a little scary. You can also start making Murex tokens.
Oh, yeah, that's always a good time. All right, end phase here, and that is exactly what she's going to do. Quill using the Mirex. There we go. Is there anything Clara can do here? And off the top, again, just it keeps getting better and better for Quill. But how does Quill go about the finish here? Again, we know that unless it gets destroyed and or bounced, the Wandering Emperor will not be making an appearance. The other one is in the graveyard at this point for Clara, and there's only 2 in the deck according to the deck list.
I'm interested to know, like, because there could be, say, another Stoic Sphinx
Mhm.
that could flash out, trade with the Reef. Clara goes down to 2. Um, so there are some potential outs. It's just going to be very, very close. Also, the High Noon activation can take out that Restless Reef.
It certainly can, and that's exactly what Clara is going to do. Still, though, 4 damage on board here, down to 2 for Clara, as
And
we
now the
see.
Hostile Investigator comes out. Clara is tapped out, so no possibility of a counterspell or not having it resolve.
So that is another one of the newer cards, Hostile Investigator. For folks unfamiliar, target opponent discards a card. It costs 4. Whenever one or more players discard one or more cards, this ability, whenever one or more players discard one or more cards, investigate. Well, again, living up to its name, right? But again, another fairly new card here in the many, many, many cards of standard. And we're about to see it in action here with the investigation because, again, good way to load the hand back up.
Absolutely. When you're starting to, not necessarily flood, but when you have a lot of excess mana that you're not doing much with, being able to draw cards sounds like a pretty good way to spend that mana.
Clara looking at all of her options here to see if there's any way to clean up this board or get back the Wandering Emperor, just something to get the ball rolling for her.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Clara just never really drew that many lands, just kind of getting stuck on 5 this late in the game. It's a little rough, especially when some of the cards that you want to be casting, cost, 4 and 5 mana.
Hmm.
'Cause also, if she were to play the 3 steps ahead, they having to discard 2 just triggers that hostile investigator, another time, giving Quill more opportunities to draw.
Yeah, I definitely think the land situation single handedly decided this one here. And the fact that Quill knew enough to put in lands that do a lot of things. So if the flood does happen, look at what can still be done. All in here for Quill. Is there anything Claire has that can possibly stop this combat?
I I don't think there is. I think we're gonna just be going to game 2.
Wow. Overall, though, honestly, given Clara's situation, still impressive play from both ends. Again, Clara doing everything possible with only 5 lands in play. Quill doing everything possible despite having literally all the lands in play. So, a very unique situation for both players. Something that you don't want to see really on either side. Both making the best game they could out of it, though. Very good
Yeah.
game one.
Yeah, it was a very good game. Both players, played to their outs. Sometimes, when you can't play more than 1 spell a turn. Granted, with the high noon, while that was on board, you still weren't playing more than 1 spell per turn, but, it's a little different. It's a little difficult when you're a little bit behind on mana and you still can't do some of the things that you're wanting to do.
All right, so pretty well balanced hand overall here for Quill. I could understand the hesitation to maybe mulligan with 4 lands, but again, it does stuff lands and spells.
Yeah, Quill's deck does have a fair amount of 1 drops, and, we do have the Fairy Mastermind, but you don't always necessarily want that to come out, immediately. Especially if you know your opponent might be drawing cards. The 3 steps ahead draws those cards. But in this case, it's okay. Flash it out, try to push some of that damage early, and especially when the high noon comes out, and you're not gonna be able to do more than, like, one thing per turn.
Card off the top for Quill, by the way. Gix, a card, yes, you do want to see early. Fantastic here. But who could resist an invasion of Amonkhet? Uh, Definitely some decisions being made here. Go for the throat. Could also take out Aaron and Giada, get in for two. And it looks like that's the option Quill's going to go for.
I think that's a smart move. We'll see if Clara ends up getting that 4th mana because I think that's a very key part on her strategy because, the Wranglers of the Damned, the Stoic Sphinx, those were, you need 4 mana. Same with Wandering Emperor to flash them out. She does have the 4th mana. Unfortunately, it is tapped, which gives Quill a little bit of an opportunity. However, we do know Clara is running some counter spells. So,
Mm,
oh, Quill, okay. Playing,
nice.
yeah, being patient and playing into some of the flash stuff, but that's okay. We now know that the invasion's not gonna get countered.
And that is quite a bit that went into Claire's yard in terms of potency. A lot of go for the throats, but that is an Urtai off the top. You were talking about counter spells earlier, Misha, and there is one of the more popular ones in the format.
I do like Urtai quite a bit. It's just, you know, there's so many things that it can do. It can destroy a creature, it can counter a spell, it has flash. I thought, Clara was the flash deck, but maybe, Quill is like, "Maybe I should have a little bit of flash too."
I mean, to be honest, it's blue. It's always going to have some degree of flash in it for sure here. So again, now both players just kind of staring at each other. The hand situation is certainly the opposite from last game. This game, Quill holds a lot of the cards, but Claire's already up to 5 lands, which is great given the situation for last time. Make that 6 lands now.
And 2 of
So
those being restless anchorages. So,
yeah,
those creature lands, I do love the creature lands.
based on the no swing for the restless anchorage, we have to assume that there's some kind of counter magic involved here. We'll see what Clara. No, no, Clara says go for it. As Urtai is attempting to take out Aaron and Giada here and succeeds. Card off the
I'm
top for
I'm
Clara.
curious if this means there might be, say, a stoic sphinx that's about to flash out. Yep, there we go.
Good call. Good call.
Saying, Aaron Giada, that's fine. You can have them, but I'll just put my sphinx out.
All right, goes for the invasion. Didn't play Gix earlier. Very, very interesting.
It's not quite enough to flip the invasion, so Clara's letting it through. Probably not gonna let it go through again, but this time was fine.
Yes, and the Gix is definitely safer in Quill's hand, given that the High Noon activation is still clearly there. All the mana is on board for it. See if Clara goes to swing here.
Ah,
Yep,
yep.
wants to put Quill on a clock.
A 5-3 in the air is a pretty good clock, especially when it's hexproof most of the time.
Hmm. Well, again, you're talking about flash things here, so now we have the double tide binder in hand. So there's a couple of different angles that can be taken here. I'm interested to see how this plays out for Quill. So Quill going for to flip the battle over. And we're
Clara
gonna see some
activating.
restless anchorage.
I'm going to assume Quill is probably going to flash out the Tidebinder in this, or maybe just offering the trade for the anchorage.
Yeah.
That does put Clara down one land, especially a creature land that may be relevant.
And Gix also lands here, so draw for Claire, another land. Again, this could be another 5 against Quill. And again, that hexproof is maybe not super, super relevant right now, but it's gonna be hard to get rid of.
Oh, absolutely. Like this is a very fast clock, and Quill doesn't have a lot of things that can really interact with it. Like the fairy masterminds have flying, but they're only a 2/1 unless there's a way to pump it up. That's just going to be a chumper. So there's only so many options for Quill to handle these sphinxes that are just pushing through so much damage in the air. Because if that sphinx connects one more time, the high noon to the face, Granted, I believe the Tidebinder can flash in and
Oh.
stifle the high noon activation.
Speaking of stopping things, looks like the Tidebinder is going to take out Odawara's channel ability. It's one way to take care of it. And that's it. We're going to see Invasion flip over. What'll it be, Quill? And you may not play this card. Oops. But that's okay.
Yep, high
And
noon. High
yep,
noon, doing work.
that is one of the most potent things I've ever seen High Noon do.
Yeah, is, prevent the the battle backside. Ooh, yeah.
Wow.
The colossal sky turtle saying, "Put keep that fairy mastermind."
Yep, and it cannot be replayed because of High Noon. High Noon just doing work here, and that is going to be lethal because of High Noon. Oh my goodness. I don't know if I've ever seen wait.
No,
One last thing. Up. I stand corrected. It
the
is
high noon
lethal.
is no
Yep.
longer on board preventing it once it's been sacrificed, so could not be the
Oh.
lethal part, but there's it's a very, very close, close game. I don't know necessarily, how Quill's gonna get out of this, especially with Clara being at 18 life and having an anchorage. So, especially because if Quill draws
This is
here.
hard. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, this is a twisted situation here. And Clara has complete knowledge of everything right now. Clara knows that the mastermind is there because the mastermind was bounced back to the hands. So now here comes the anchorage. What is that last card in Clara's hand? Both down the
I
middle.
I'm not sure because this is gonna be so close. Because you flash out the mastermind, you chump the 5/3, 2 damage still comes through, you're down to 1.
Hmm.
Ooh.
Hmm. This is rough.
On the flip side, if Clara doesn't have something in hand that's relevant, she's looking at lethal on the crackback.
There's a lot of lethal going on here. I was just one turn too soon.
Okay, double
Alrighty.
blocking of the Sphinx. Let's see, let's see what Clara has. This is the break point of this game.
All
All
right.
right, gonna let the Sphinx die.
Oh, this is nerve wracking right now.
If I had to guess, okay, a prayer of
Oh,
binding, and that's life gain. All right.
okay. Oh, that is not gonna do it. Wow. That was quite the game. Oh my
Yeah, because
goodness.
1, 2, 3, 4. That is. Oh, is that enough for double restless reef activations?
I'm not sure if there was a reef on board there. I know they all look this like a lot of those Dimir lands, they all look the same there.
They really do. It's very hard to tell
I look for the little
which
the
ones are which. Because I was like, if that was the double restless reef, that may have done it. But I'm gonna assume those weren't the
no.
reefs.
And I was looking for the look for the little like shark tail in there. That's the thing. But they all look the same. Like I'm looking at the lands right now on the list and I'm just like, yeah, I need to get out my magnifying glass, which is fine. Murders is still in
I
standard. That's allowed.
I was just gonna say I'm old and I'm allowed, but that works too. I was like, I can see that there's a little bit of blue and a little bit of black on all of those, but that's about it. I'm even wearing my glasses.
We need that feature here on the VML where if we put our mouse over the video that we're watching here, we
The
can.
overlay.
Yeah. We need an overlay of our own here. Otherwise, I'm gonna need to get out a magnifying glass here for some of this. So going into game 3, what a match so far. Again, just great games here so far by Clara and Quill. Quill opting to go first here in game 3. And it's looking pretty good overall if this is the
That
one Quill agrees to take.
Yeah, I think if I'm in Quill's position, that looks like an alright starting hand.
By the way, I do the same thing, Quill, where I'm just ready. I'm like, "Okay, I wanna go. I wanna put this land down."
Not gonna waste any time.
No, no, absolutely not. Alright, so Clara mulligans here. Hopefully, Claire can stay at 6. She
Yep,
does?
she kept her 6, which I won't lie, being going down, to 6 on the draw, you never want to mulligan, but
Mhm.
it's a little less punishing when you're on the draw.
Oh, yeah, and someone always explained, like, "You don't have to mulligan, we get to mulligan," and that's a good way to, like, think of the way mulliganing works within Magic, it's better than just sitting there not being able to have some say in your hand.
That's a far more optimistic approach than I ever take. Good for them.
I mean, I'm so not saying that in the heat of the moment. I don't feel that way. I'm just saying what I was taught. All right, that is an interrupter there. Early on, going to exile the spell to plot it. So we temporarily say bye bye to mastermind number 2. But look at this right now. Go for the throat. Well, maybe we'll see. Yep, go for the throat for the interrupter.
Yep, once that interrupter is off the board, you no longer I'm pretty sure that you no longer have to pay the 2 and it's just a free plot.
Oh yeah, yeah. So again, this looks like something within the video. Maybe Arena did something that day. I mean, it doesn't surprise me. There were a few updates this week.
Yeah, I know that I went through my fair share of arena update issues.
Oh, there we go. There we go. All right. Sorry, I was so focused on the. I'm like, come on already. All right, there goes the interrupter down the board, down to 16 for Clara. Let's see how Clara responds.
This not having to pay the extra 2, removing the Aven interrupter and not having to pay the 2 for the plotted mastermind is pretty big here because that meant that Quill could have kept up the make disappear and disdainful stroke on Clara's turn, and we
Oh,
are gonna see them played now.
that's a good one to get rid of.
Oh,
That is
absolutely.
a card.
Yep.
All right,
Alright.
land for Clara. There's the red source, and there is the high noon. Not interrupted. Makes sense here. Oh, Alkalots. Who doesn't love a good Alkalots there?
Yeah, I'm a fan of bats and bat gods.
Bats and bat accessories indeed here. Aaron and Giada appear on the field, going to block, and I see what's going on here for Quill. Quill has some plans here, going for the investigator this time. Why not? Get a discard out of the hand, get to make some clue tokens.
Another errant in Giada hitting the graveyard. I don't think Clara minds too much about that one since, they are legendary. Can't have
Mhm.
2 of them on board anyways. But yeah, this has been such a fun game. It's
I
all
love
that flash interaction, so much
Yeah.
blue.
I love the way these 2 decks clash together. I mean, this is just so much fun to watch. I'm really thankful that both players submitted this because, again, you don't get to see matches like this every day. I've never seen this Flash deck before, but that's what I love about the VML. Oh, there's another Prayer of Binding. Okay, so no counter for that. Getting rid of the Investigator, I have to think that, yes, Alkalos is just going to make an appearance. Top deck here for Clara. What does she get?
Ooh, a land.
Land.
However, the high noon can take out the Aclazotz. However, Aclazotz can just come back in like a turn or two. You just have to
Yeah.
have, I think, either you or your opponent just has to have, I think, one or less cards in hand, and it can come back as the temple graveyard temple thing.
Oh my gosh, such a powerful card. And again, just it's a drawing machine. It gains life. I mean, is there anything this can't do? If it dies, you have a chance to recast it. Wow. Down to 8 for Clara. What does Clara need to come back into this game? Maybe a way to remove the big baddie god?
Yeah, it's hard because the best answer for Aclazotz is honestly No More Lies because that's an exile. But once Aclazotz hits the board, since it just goes to being a land and then coming back, I don't think Clara's running a lot of exile interaction. We have already seen the one Wandering Emperor hit the graveyard,
Mhm.
so I think her best option would be to get that second Wandering Emperor, but we know from Quill's hand that Make Disappear and Urtai are just raring to come out and say, "No, thank you, Emperor."
Yeah, I was gonna say you said no more lies, and I'm like, it's a little late for that. The lies have already been told, unfortunately, for the case of Clara.
Yeah, if Clara had the No More Lies in hand the turn Aclazotz hit the board, that would have been perfect. Because I think Quill was on exact mana for casting Aclazotz, but
Mhm.
on this Aclazotz attract trigger is so rough because Clara either has to flash out and play whatever's in her hand now, or she's just gonna lose it.
Yeah, Equazot's down the middle. Now we're gonna see what happens to the card in Claire's hand. And it's gonna get cast. It's the interrupter. How will Quill respond?
Honestly, I think you just let it happen. The interrupter's coming out, but it's not targeting anything. So
Yeah, yeah.
and
Card
even
drawn?
if Clara double blocks, like,
Yeah.
the Aclazotz is gonna take out at least one of those creatures, and it'll come back eventually.
Oh, okay. We have an animation. So before declare blockers, Urtai is going to destroy the 2/3 line, the burb. Card gets drawn here. And now, so
I
remember, Aclazotz won't be destroyed, as you were saying, Misha.
Mhm.
It will die, but it will not be permanently gone by any means.
Nope. The bats just keep coming back. I wanna point out that this is a nice little battle of bats versus birds.
That is good.
The ultimate, flying, creature showdown.
Yeah, High Noon. High Noon is definitely an X factor here. It's really cool to see it being played. Someone in chat was talking about that. Agreed. Agreed. It's really good to see that, seeing some action. All right. Fairy Mastermind with the Flash. And again, which one's the Flash deck? You absolutely nailed that commentary, Misha, because now I'm getting lost with that.
Everything's just, coming in at times where they normally wouldn't be coming in, and it's hard to pilot. It's hard to pilot one deck that's based around, flash or like instant speed kind of
Yeah.
interaction. It's really hard when your opponent is also playing a deck that interacts like that. So
Yeah, Clara's deck, I mean, it's not quite as potent as it was because there were some very busted cards in that. But if any of y'all remember, oh, hang on real quick. 3 steps ahead, it turns out, countering, drawing two. That is big for the amount of mana Clara has. I was going to bring up Simic Flash if anybody remembers that deck from a few years back. It doesn't quite have that level of potency, but it's still pretty strong right now.
when I think of Flash, all I think is pouncing Shore Shark. I remember starting in the Dimir mutate Flash decks. Those are some of my favorites.
Oh, by the way, you were asking about the reef earlier. There it is. The little fishy tail. That's so cute.
I still
All
have
right,
no
Lily
idea
of the
which one
tail.
it is.
I just always look for the little fishy tail. All right, so what is going to happen here? A lot of decisions being made here. Looks like we're going to see play from the reverse Temple of the Dead, Takanuma being played as a land, and a swing down the middle for 5. Claire's only down to 8 again. All
Ugh.
right. Ooh,
Is there
this is
gonna
kind
be
of.
a Wandering Emperor off the top? Even if the Wandering Emperor did come down, Quill has the Make Disappear, and I don't think Quill would even bat an eye at sacrificing Urtai. Sorry, Urtai.
Ooh.
Um,
Ooh.
Aclazotz takes priority.
There is still that high noon though, and Claire could use it to we'll call it stall on Acquisats, but I mean, there's only going to be so many turns left that Claire can take unless there's a way to permanently get rid of Acquisats. Because, like you said, the bats just keep coming.
Yeah, like, Clara's Clara's real, like, safe option is to try to exile it. Get rid of
Mhm.
it once and for all, but with Quill holding that make disappear, that's it's gonna be tricky because, like you said, the high noon can take out Aclazotz, but just stalling.
Oh,
Just
okay. That's another but that is a bat token. Interesting, interesting. That is a good target for make disappear should Quill need the token at all to do that. So again, now I have Aclazotz and an easy target now to sacrifice to make disappear here. Very tough position for Clara. And that's it. That's going to be the game. My goodness, was that entertaining. Quill, Clara, thank you both so much for that matchup. That was exciting and just a lot of back and forth. And I just could not believe just the intensity of that match. Misha, what'd you think?
I just thought it was so much fun. I loved how, things were just happening, like, we'd go to the instep, it's like, "What's gonna come out now? What new surprises do you have in store for us?" And it was, just a really fun, interactive game of Magic, and I love that.
That is what I look for in Magic. It's not necessarily about who wins and who loses, but what are the interactions? What are the decisions being played? What is the variety of deck being played with the extended standard we have before us right now? And again, you can catch it here on the VML. I'm going to say we have some of the most variety you're going to see in the Magic world in terms of standard decks. So if you're looking for something a little different, look no further. We just have a wide variety every week here. And with us being able to change our decks, it always keeps folks fresh on their toes here. Unfortunately, we only have one more matchup, but we saved a good one for last. So let's go into it. All right, we have domain ramp. So again, this is another one. Now, Misha, you were saying earlier that domain ramp is seeing a little less play this week. So I'm curious to hear what your theory is behind that.
I think, mostly the reason why is just Esper Midrange and Teamer Analyst have really kind of just showed how resilient they are, and while Domain Ramp is also one of those extremely strong, resilient decks as well, we saw those most recent Pro Tour was won by someone that played Domain Ramp. Um, I think just Teamer Analyst and Esper Midrange have really just kind of become the more popular ones, and Domain Ramp is just not getting as much love as it used to get.
By the way, I always like looking at the answers to some of these. So the favorite arena avatar, goth icon that is Liliano. We support women's wrongs in this household. I love that. Just big fan of that response. Just thank you. Oh my goodness. So its opponent now. So we have domain ramp. Its opponent is what do we got going here? Kayla, and she is bringing the Esper mid range, the more traditional approach to standard, the tried and true. Quite a few new additions to this one here, and again, just because it's Esper mid range, there's a lot of different compositions of that. What are we seeing here that may look a little different than usual?
I mean, you don't normally see Void Rend. It is one white, one blue, one black. So it's not always the easiest to cast, but it's not counterable. And so I do like that she put Void Rend in this deck. That was probably the thing that stood out to me the most. Um, I know that there's some decks that have been on Duelist of the Mind. This deck, especially with the Rafine triggers, connives a lot. So Duelist of the Mind gets a lot of power really fast off of the connives. So it's a strong addition. I know plenty of Esper lists are running it. Um, so I think those are kind of the two that really stood out to me. You got your No More Lies, a one of Shouldered here, or sorry, two of Shouldered. Got your Virtues of Strength, or sorry, Loyalty. That's the white one. But yeah, I think mostly it's a pretty stock list.
Yeah, and again, I cannot wait to see Esper versus Domain. Again, a tale as old as time here in current standard. Let's go to the arena. Final match of the evening. Marceline versus Kayla here, and we're seeing this from the perspective of the Domain ramp. So again, we have a nice mix of lands and spells here. Looks like the stopper could be played turn 3. But let's see what's available here. So Long
Ooh.
Goodbye could not be played. I have to like keep track of this. I do not know how domain players like keep the mana in line. It's so
Right?
impressive
Like,
for
I'm
me.
looking like, that's
Yeah.
the Naya land.
Yeah.
So if you wanna play the Stomper on 3, you have to name Dinosaur. Never mind, you just play the Boseiju. Never
Oh
think about
yeah. Yeah.
it.
Why didn't I think of that one? No, that is a fantastic draw.
Yeah.
So,
With this deck, you typically, I think almost always with your first Cavern, always wanna say Angel. Your
mhm,
Archangel of Wrath comes down, your Atraxa comes down off of Angel, and then I think it's second one you typically wanna say, Phyrexian, because your Sheoldred and your Atraxa are both Phyrexians. So, occasionally you'll name Dinosaur, but you're not typically wanting to name Dinosaur.
so the bat confiscates the Long Goodbye. That makes sense. That makes sense. Cavernous Soul's probably gonna declare. Ooh, this is a tough decision. I don't
Yeah,
think
if
there's a
you
right or
if you
wrong one.
say Angel, you can't play your Dinosaur.
But that's okay because there is still a Beseiju in hand and two Leyline bindings that can be played. So again, it's just a different way to approach it, right?
Mhm. Yep, so you could bind the bat, get back the long goodbye, be prepared for, well, we don't have black mana just yet, so,
Yeah.
I was gonna say be prepared to play the long goodbye, but then wait a second, no, you can't. Um, but yeah, I'm interested to see what Kayla has. I'm gonna assume there's a No More Lies, in
Oh
her
yeah.
hand, just
Yeah.
based off of, the 2 mana weight.
A couple different options here that can be taken. I'm interested to see which avenue. And again, it is important to note that if the fifth mana can be drawn and Kayla's board is starting to look a little lengthy, Sunfall is a terrifying spell. So again, not much of a board presence so far for either player in single bat here. So we'll see. But again, lot of promise from what we can see here in Marceline's hand.
Yeah, it's always difficult, when you're playing against these domain ramp decks because you'd never want to overcommit to the board because those decks do run plenty of board wipes. But you
Mhm.
also still have to keep applying pressure. So you have to kind of like hedge your bets on like how much do I commit? How much am I willing to lose if they do have a board wipe? And how much resources do I keep in hand to rebuild if I do get board wiped?
Yes. So it took a little while for that ley line binding to hit the field per se. So that is a possible no more lies in hand. And again, Marceline really needs the stopper to enter, but that is a fairy mastermind flashing the field. So again, a little bit of a flashback to the last game. I'm very sorry to anybody in chat. I apologize. I have to do at least one, and that one wasn't too
They're
forceful.
not sorry, don't worry about it.
So Raffine hits the board, another great one. And again, I love the restraint here by Marceline. So again, just not going after the mastermind right away, waiting, and that is a great way to get rid of a Raffine. Then the mastermind, two down the board, 16, not so bad. And now, Kayla has not played a fourth land. This gives Marceline the green light to do a couple of interesting things here. It could be Elish Norn, it could be the Stomper. It just
Ooh,
depends on what Marceline's plan is here.
right? This is so difficult.
Mhm.
Me me, I'm like, I would be firing off this Topiary Stomper because I'm like, I really need to get a black and a blue mana. With the Long Goodbye being in hand, the black would be my pick as well.
Mhm.
But it's so hard not to look at Elish Norn and be like, "Hello, I have the mana, my opponent's tapped out, I know you can resolve."
I
But
mean, the Stomper was like, I don't know if there was a right or a wrong play. I definitely think the Stomper was better for long term, right? You're getting a land out of the deck. You're preparing for something bigger. So I see that. There was a case for the Elish Norm, but I think ultimately the Stomper was a fantastic play. So let's see what happens for Kayla. I'm not still seeing the fourth land still. And that is another Ravine,
we
which
didn't
again, this one,
Yeah, I was
oh,
gonna say
going for the wow.
we don't have the 1 extra mana necessary to pay the ward for this Rafine,
Mhm.
but by taking the Fairy Mastermind, that's gonna prevent Kayla from potentially conniving this turn and maybe drawing that 4th land that it seems like she's stuck on.
Yeah, great play. great play to go after the mastermind because it delays another turn. I mean, it might as well be something that's close to an extra turn, right?
Mhm. And are we going to see Elishnorn come down now? To be honest, Kayla has not exhausted any of her removal so far.
Mhm.
So she could be, with all of those cards in hand that aren't lands, she could just be holding up quite a few pieces of removal. So playing out Elishnorn is a risk just for that reason alone.
All right. So again, and this is totally understandable here. Long goodbye could be used for something that might hit the field in the next phase. I mean, it's still going to cover it no matter what.
Yeah,
But remember,
I
can't
I
be
think
countered.
yeah, I think just getting this Rafine off the board is the right move because
Mhm.
it's Rafine, like you said earlier, is probably one of, if not the best card in standard right now, and so it's a kill on sight in my mind.
Yeah, I mean, if that even gets away for a couple, oh my goodness, that is what I'm losing count. To someone, that's
Third,
the
number
third one.
3, I believe.
Oh my goodness gracious, wow! But that is a herd migration off the top for Marceline. So
That
again, this is a very tangled web at this point.
Yeah, I it's a herd migration that can be hard cast without any fear of getting counterspelled since, both, Kayla only has the 1 mana up.
But again, Marceline just again acknowledging how powerful Rafine says, no, no, get it out of here, get it out of here. Understandable. Have a nice day. Ooh, Void
Hmm.
Ren.
This is a little scary because now, Marceline, what does it do? Like, do you cycle the herd migration, but then Elish Norn gets taken? And also, like, does
Yeah.
ugh, yeah.
Again, it gets rid of a potential land draw here. Totally understandable here.
Mhm. Yeah, 'cause, I wasn't sure. Oh!
Oh, look who has shown up to the party. That's an Atraxa Grand Unifier. And now
Who
look, oh my goodness, this
yeah,
value, this value.
was never worried about that Atraxa being taken. Who needs or sorry, Elish Norn being taken? Because when you get an Atraxa, who needs Elish Norn?
Never didn't have
Oh, that was
it.
such a great pickup. Perfect top deck on Marceline's side.
Loving it.
And
All
some
right.
beans. Oh,
So now what, right?
Kayla is finally getting her land drops, but it might be a little late now because Preacher of
Mm.
the Schism, great blocker on the ground, makes, little tokens can draw cards. But when you've got a 7/7 flyer, it's not as good.
Just, I'm sorry, I'm still coming back from that Atraxa. And again, it's understandable that you get top decks, right? Because you're thinning the deck and you're thinning the deck and you're thinning the deck. Makes perfect sense. Atraxa down the middle for, yes, that is 7. Death Touch, Lifelink, Vigilance. What else could you want? Maybe a little bit of trample, but we can't ask for everything here.
I mean, I'm greedy, right? And I'm greedy. I want it all. I want my Atraxa and to eat it too. Wait, no. Uh,
All right, up the beanstalk here. And again, another great. What is it with good uncommons in the standard? We have the bat, we have up the beanstalk. Just these uncommons. Oh my goodness! Now herd migration off
Ooh,
the top. It can't be stopped. Proving
yeah.
ground hits the board here, and again, now you have to think. Well, what are my options? Because there is a lot of them lately, but no more lies mana is still up.
Mhm. Yeah, this Marceline's board's looking pretty good right now. I believe they're in a very strong position.
Virtue of loyalty. All right, all right. Oh, and that is another bat.
Honestly, if I'm Marceline, I think I don't even cycle the herd migration.
No.
Like because it's like, do you take the herd migration or do you take the Atraxa? Neither are great. You definitely take the Atraxa. That is the correct move. But I'm like, you don't love seeing either of those if you're in Kayla's position.
Still a very interesting situation here. Preacher gonna swing?
I think I would swing with the preacher because
Nope.
I don't think Marceline's blocking.
Maybe trying to save it to go with the virtue. Anyways, we have a Zeatora for a cycle and possible animation. Nope, not quite yet, which is fine. So what else do we have? A cartographer survey off the top of Splunking and a herd migration.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
Hmm.
7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That I think with Kayla being tapped out right now, I think I would just go for I think there's enough for spelunking and hardcast herd migration.
All right, up the beanstalk. That's a draw. Look at all those animals. Look at all those cute, cuddly critters that hit the field. All right, so Traxa likely down the board here. There we go.
Mhm, mhm. And Kayla, unfortunately, is still not in a position to really block with either of those bats. Those bats are holding so much strong value. So it's hard though, because at what point do you say, I need to protect myself and not take 7 to the face? But also, I don't want Marceline to have this Elish Norn or second Atraxa.
No, no, absolutely not. I mean, if you think Elish Norn's scary in the hand, wait till you see it on the field if it ever hits. My gosh, there's a reason why you don't see it in play often, and that's because it is a key prime spot for removal.
Yeah,
So,
if I'm in Kayla's position, I am looking for any kind of removal to try to get rid of that Atraxa, because that's that's what's gonna kill her.
mhm. 4 life left for Kayla. What can be done here? Gonna go with the virtue, which was what I suspected why the preachers didn't swing.
Mhm.
And the preachers are still blocking points, and Kayla's just like, nah, I'm good. And again, it's like what you said. I mean, there could be a block in there, but then, your opponent's up 7 life or up a card from the bat. And that's the downside of the bats in this matchup, right? With Atraxa.
Yeah, I think if that game didn't end there, I would have maybe blocked with the Atraxa. Unfortunately, they would maybe replay the second Atraxa just for the value, but
Mhm.
it was gonna be an uphill battle.
Just wow. And again, look at this wonderful side deck too. There's a lot going on here. This domain deck is pretty ridiculous.
Ooh, a Tyrannix Rex. I love to
Ooh,
see that coming in.
ooh.
That's not one I see very often, actually making it into the games. I'm spicy. I like it.
I like big dinos and I cannot lie.
Hey, that is another reason to name Dino with the cavern.
Yeah, yeah. There you go. I always take the cavern on a case by case basis just because there are a few times you call Dino, you call Angel. It's complicated though, especially like when in the match it's declared and what kind of matchup it is.
Oh, absolutely, especially when this is, a 5-color domain deck, and so when you have a technically it can be any color depending, but otherwise it's just a
Ooh,
colorless mana. It's a little,
this.
interesting include. Oh,
This is a good going second hand. This is a really good going second hand. The only thing it's missing is white mana. So
mm,
there is that complication. If you find that mana, you are golden for this game, especially against a deck like Esper, where they cannot afford to wipe multiple times.
oh, absolutely. Yeah, I getting the white mana is
That's the tricky part, but
it's
yeah.
gonna be hard, but if we can get that 2 white mana,
Oh, there you
which
go. There's
that
one.
yeah, that Stomper, 'cause Zeator's Proving Ground, that's green, we've got 2 of them.
Yep.
You don't even need to name Dino with the cavern this time.
Oh, there's another green. See, never didn't have it. Never didn't have it. So yeah, now that Dino can be played a little easier. And again, we'll see how the sequencing goes. Leaving long goodbye open now, and rightfully so. And here you go. Here's the mastermind.
I think, yeah, I like that Marceline didn't immediately snap off the long goodbye because
Mhm.
since it's not able to be countered if the Rafine did come out on 3, you just, snap that Rafine off the board.
Yep. Yeah, that's right. The word wouldn't make a difference with long goodbye.
Yeah, that's why Long Goodbye tends to make some of these cuts for these decks just because it can't be countered, and there are quite a few counter spells that are very, very popular in Standard right now, like No More Lies,
Like, no more
but
lies,
it
but this
can't
is
be
a lie.
countered because of the cavern.
This is a lie.
Yes, unfortunately, that was a minor misplay just because, it's hard because,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, it's hard sometimes to remember that cards make things uncounterable.
Hey, again, everybody does it. And anyone who tells you otherwise is full of you know what. But yeah, in arena, especially one of the things that I always have to remind myself is that purple border around the card. But even then, you're in the heat of the moment and it's just really hard to see that. Again, it's happened to us all. Where
Sometimes I think Arena just wants to make my cards prettier, and I'm like, "That's a nice
yeah,
border. That's a
yeah.
very nice border."
I was practicing last week against for one of my matches and I totally didn't see. I'm like, oh, well dang. So
Yeah,
yeah, no
like,
no worries, y'all. We do not judge here. Again, we all make the same mistakes. No worries.
I've done it plenty of times,
Mhm.
and they still somehow call me an expert. Weird.
You are wonderful. Go for the throat here on one of the topiary stoppers. And again, it's important to note Kayla is stuck on 3 lands right now. Normally not a huge deal, but you think of the clock in this match as the lands on the field when you're playing as domain, right? The more lands there are, there's Rafine, by the way.
Mm,
The more
and those are
lands.
pain lands too.
Mm-hmm. I've totally paid, by the way, on the long goodbye for the word before too. That's another thing that's been done.
I
Uh
I have also done that my fair share of times, but, like, "Sure, I can pay. I'll pay my taxes. I'm willing."
oh yes, oh yes. Stomper across the board here, and this is pretty intense match right now. Marceline just going on the go pedal here, saying yes, yes. Now, who is the aggro deck now? But now the bat is out, and this is gonna be interesting. We'll call it interesting because we see both the depopulates present.
Yeah,
Oh my goodness gracious. That didn't happen. That did not just happen. Holy
Oh,
smokes.
oh, wow. Wow, this,
Um, yeah. No, I agree, Kayla. I agree. Holy moly. Whew. I just
I've never
wow.
seen the Tyrannix Rex hit the board and to see both of them back to back, one get snapped and then one get played. I just wanna say thank you, Marceline, for that joy. You've brought me so much joy tonight.
Fantastic. Just again, a fantastic game. Domain looking like some that might inspire me to give that a try at some point. I always look at the mana. I'm always unsure, going like, oh my gosh, how do you balance all of this mana? And again, Marceline shows us how it's done. It was wonderful. Good games to both. So, yeah, as we said here in the VML, there is variety in the standard right now. And again, if you ever have a doubt as to what to register, just peruse the VML website. It'll give you an idea as to what folks are playing. And who knows, maybe you'll just find something to play that you enjoy. That's really the most important part of Magic, is just making sure you're enjoying and feeling comfortable with what you're playing.
Yeah.
So,
We always say good
Misha,
luck, have fun. So
yeah.
that's what we're here for.
So to close out, Misha, what are your closing thoughts on the decks that we saw tonight?
Ooh. Well, like I said earlier, I'm a little toxic. I really, really loved the Simic toxic deck. I enjoyed getting to watch it do its thing and do some fun stuff. Counting to 10 so much easier than counting to 20. Love that. So that was a really fun one. And I'll be honest, seeing a Tyrannix Rex to the face, chef's kiss.
That was that was a wonderful finale to tonight. So, speaking of folks to thank, first of all, thank you to everyone who played tonight. And thanks to everyone who's been playing throughout the weeks. We really appreciate y'all being here for VML. You are the reason why we're here doing this week after week. So, just again, thank you so much for your involvement. We appreciate that. Speaking of thank yous, thank you to Wizards and, of course, Phoebe. We couldn't have done all this without Phoebe. Thank you so much for everything. We would not be here without you. So much love, friend. To our to our wonderful admin team, to us, the casters. Misha, thank you so much for being here with me tonight. It was a lot of fun. I had a great time.
Thank
To
you.
our players, and of course to you, the viewers, thank you so much for being here tonight. We had a lot of fun with y'all. So, Misha, where can somebody find you if they were to be looking on the internet for something cool?
You can find me at magic_mishamigo. I'm pretty much on all social medias. I frequent Twitter mostly, do a little bit of streaming here and there. Instagram. I do a lot of cosplay stuff. If you like weird cosplays, that's kind of my thing. But I also, like to be here casting, commentating with, people like Skybilz and, the rest of our caster team. Wonderful people. And, you'll find me at some events coming up. What is it? Next weekend, I will be at DreamHack Dallas. That's where I'll be next weekend. And then a few weekends after that, I'll be at Command Fest Atlanta. And then after that, I'm actually going to be at MagicCon Amsterdam. I'm going to Europe. Weird.
Well, we'll be excited to see you there. And again, if you any of y'all are at any of those events, be sure to say hello to our fellow VML folks. We promise we're very friendly. We don't bite, and it'll just be wonderful to talk some magic. And speaking of magic, you can find me at Skybilz, and I will be doing the early access event online for Modern Horizons 3. Thanks to Wizards for that opportunity. I'll be playing a lot of limited. I love limited within that. So very, very excited to be able to do that, to rep the VML and just throw down with some of my favorite friends, content creators on Twitch. It'll be a great time. So, again, thank you so much. That will be our broadcast for tonight. Be sure to study up because, again, standard's only going to keep getting more complicated. But again, there are a lot of fantastic resources. Be sure to go to the VML website, VMLMTG.com. You'll be able to find all of our deck lists here. Again, it is open deck list after a certain point. I believe it's Monday when those are published, but you can go and look at the previous weeks whenever you want to. So, again, y'all got this. I believe in y'all. Thank you so much for being here, and we will see you back here next week. Good night and take care.